You're listening to the Buy Land, Live Well podcast. Welcome in. I'm Derek Ham. Enjoy the show. Welcome in. This is Derek Ham. This is the Buy Land, Live Well podcast, brought to you by Rupel Ranch and Land. And I'd like to introduce my guest today, Mr. Mike Shouse. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. So what I was going to mention, so normally on a show, what we do, we talk a little bit about real estate.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do. That's what Rupert Ranch.
And we have a relationship there based on that time ago.
We do. Not that long ago. But yeah, actually it was. It was pre-COVID, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. If we'd have waited another year or two.
I don't know. That's how it goes, right?
So we'll talk a little real estate. And then I definitely want to talk a little bit about your background and conservation. Some of these groups. I'm a member of or a board member of Houston Safari Club Foundation, and what I'm seeing out there right now with all the different groups, we're all supposed to be on a unified front, and I'm wondering, if we can, or if some of these groups can sustain the way they operate now, based on changes with so much in the world different to do with electronics and all that stuff, and kids,
right,
and bring them into the fold. For you,
big challenge.
Yes. But first, if you don't mind, we've got a couple of listings that I want to talk to you about. I want to show you. I think you're going to be impressed. I'm hoping, I know you can see this on, let's see if I can see it. Where is there it is. You got to have pretty much a telescope to get to this thing. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is a video of a new listing that we are extremely proud of. And I'll have it running in the back, and then there's so much to it. I've got my cheat sheet here in front of me. I got my phone. So it's called Rancho Blanco, obviously. It's if you look at the per acre price, it sounds pretty good. I mean, it's $2,200 an acre.
Wow.
Right?
That does sound good.
However, it's 2,868 acres.
Yeah.
Right? The home is spectacular. The home has got a history to it. It's very interesting, but it's this property it's not been on the market in the last almost 100 years. And it looks like we're spinning. That's okay. It'll catch up. The house has got 7,000 square feet, right?
Wow.
It was completely renovated back in 2022 by acclaimed Dallas architect Stephen B. Chambers and Troy Poole of Restoration Works in Dallas. So the house is completely restored. The land is just absolutely beautiful, and maybe we'll get to see it. There we go. Where it is it's on the outskirts of Sonora.
Yeah.
So I think you know that pretty well.
Yep.
You hunted up that direction.
I have.
Quite a bit.
I've hunted all over the state. I've definitely hunted up there. That area has become a big focal point. I know. I'm sure you've seen that. As real estate, the stuff closer to the big urban areas are filling up.
Right.
You're not able to get the size of places just because of things have been sliced into smaller pieces. So if you'd like to have a little space,
right,
that's the area where people go. It's got great. I think the weather's underappreciated out there.
A little drier,
and a lot of animals. So if you're into the conservation hunting and want to be out, that's definitely becoming a place.
Yeah, this one's gotten a lot of press recently. I believe it's been in Houston Chronicle, Wall Street Journal, I believe. But it's an amazing place, and I'm hoping to be able to talk to the seller as well to get some more insight.
Well, it's beautiful
on the property, but it's something else. It's amazing, and again, it's not it's not just a house. I mean, there's a beautiful, beautiful house with a lot of rich history to it, but it's on an amazing piece of land as well. So, but I'll let that run, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit more about some other listings. But I would like to. I want to talk to you about. I mean, you and I have a history going back. I'm trying to think how many years. Probably 5, 6, 7.
Probably 6, 7 years.
Right.
Probably at this point. Yeah.
And I think when we first met, you were a regional director
Yes.
of
Yes.
National Wild Turkey Federation, right?
Yes. I was kind of getting back in a big circle. Always loved the outdoors. Just when those kids throw me out, I'm running around the woods, and just on my own. And decided to go to school and wanted to be a marine biologist. When I found out in about the first month that I have no aptitude for Latin, and you better know Latin. And you also found there's going to be, if you were the top 1% in the world, you could barely eke enough money to live by.
Right.
So I ended up getting into what took me into the business world, and actually had a whole career in big giant consulting clients. We're talking the Coors, the Disneys, the AT&T. Allowed me to really be independent at a pretty young age, but needed to do something else, and always want to get back into it. And found an opportunity to get out with the National Wild Turkey Federation, and was the regional director, and I covered half of Texas. Got to meet tons of people, got back to all my conservation roots. Spent a lot of time recruiting volunteers and helping them, fundraise.
Yep.
And did that. That's how we met.
Right.
And we were putting some things together with some very interesting people.
Very interesting. Yes.
There's whole stories through there we could spend a lot of time talking about. But that's kind of where that relationship started. Now, since then, just where I am today, just so everybody knows, when COVID happened. It was a very disruptive thing, as you would expect, for grassroots fundraising efforts. Right. And the National Wild Turkey Federation, who is a nonprofit, it doesn't operate with a lot of cash, had to furlough many of their employees, and all the staff in Texas were furloughed. But it was also an opportunity for me, having spent 7 years doing that, I wanted to be back independent, kind of play around a little bit more. So I took opportunity of that. They recruited me to be back on the state board. So I am now the vice president responsible for supporting chapters in the southern part of the state, as well as I'm the political affairs liaison. So my job is to kind of keep in touch with what's going on in the state. And we've got some cool things. I don't know if you noticed, we've been wanting to have some changes to the turkey regulations that are coming about this year. I'll let people look that up, which I think are kind of exciting. They're going to help us with that core mission. And I'm also big into getting something that we're going to talk about probably a little bit later, which is the challenges of getting people back into hunting and conservation.
Right.
So I work with some of the various agencies that have a particular focus in that area. Takes a lot of my time. I didn't realize, my wife says, "My God, you're spending more time volunteering than you ever did when even when you were working for him."
Right. I know exactly what you mean, because being a board member on Houston Safari Club Foundation, it does take up a lot of time, but it's very rewarding.
It is.
I mean, my focus has always been kids, right? And that's who I want to reach, and that's my main goal.
Yeah.
And I think Houston Safari Club does a good job, but I think we can always do better. And some of these other organizations that may be more on a national level, I don't know if their focus is more kids or if it's, or where do you think the reach is going? Do you think it's young professionals? Do you think it's more well-established hunters? Do you think?
Well, I think as humans, as good people, our natural drive is to protect kids and start there. I think what we have learned is that kids by themselves cannot sustain themselves as being in the outdoors, much less being hunters and fishermen.
Right.
They have to be part of a network. And what we're seeing is this gap between, as hunters and fishermen are aging out. I think, you look at the statistics, and it's certainly over 50, over 60 is where our average is. And we have very few people coming up through that. So while we see a lot of efforts that are to get kids out there, I think it's unfortunately, the bad news is, in my opinion, it's not popular, but it's not converting into people that are conservation hunters and fishermen. It's more of a transactional, makes us feel good, and actually it helps us make money.
Right.
Because if you go out there and say, hey, I'm looking for a donation, or I'm looking for a program, the heartstring pull is where the play is.
Right.
My particular focus, because of that, I had a transformable thing happen to me. Derek, I know we've talked about it, but when my oldest child got married, a girl, and she'd been out there, her husband and his groomsmen had never fired a gun. They'd done a little fishing, and I took them out rather than the golf tournament and took them on a Top Shot course. And I mean, they are all. I saw these 20-something-year-old guys. Their eyes opened up, and half of them, they'd never seen it before. So what I like to focus on, and where I think our opportunity is in the young adult area, and that's where I'm particularly focusing my time. But we have to kind of hit on all cylinders.
I agree with you, and one of the things I always think about is trying to create a true mentorship program, because with the younger kids, a lot of times it's a one and done deal, right?
Right.
We were able to take these kids on a hunt, and that's fantastic and it's wonderful. Right. But is it going to stick? I don't know. And so we need to figure out a way to keep those kids engaged. Years ago, I took a child on a hunt, and single parent mother, and after that hunt, that was the very next thing she asked. She said, well, how do we hunt again?
Right.
So it's finding that way to figure out how to keep them involved. Money is an issue. Do they live in a place where there's public land where they can hunt? How do you keep them engaged, right? Right. So those are hard questions to answer, I think, because
yes,
you get those kids, and how do you keep them going, right?
Right.
So the young adults, I understand. They might have a little more money. They might be able to afford to go on some hunts. So for sure. But I really want to try and focus on, or that's what I think about, is a mentorship program.
And I'm 100% with you. And it's tough because we'll talk about it as liking the idea, and some of us love it. I love it. I'll take more people. I can tell you stories. This whole season has been about taking people on various levels on turkey hunts, as opposed to me getting out there and hunting myself. Yep. And it's kind of teaching people the joy in that and having the thing out there. In fact, I'm trying to start an adult mentor program, and it's not as easy, because as soon as I say back to the kids, hey, we're going to help some kids, people, oh, that's awesome. But then I don't know if it's competitiveness, our natural adult competitiveness is why should I help this other guy when I can't even, it's hard for me to find a place to hunt.
Right.
Right. And so it's going to be a challenge for us until we can kind of figure out how to solve that problem, I think, Derek.
Well, I think everybody, I hope, as a hunter, you get to a point where you hunt it a lot, right? And you enjoy it. Yeah. But there is something about taking someone that's never been, and to me, it's more satisfying to see them take something, regardless of age.
Right.
And know that now they see what I see.
Right.
And doing it the right way, right. Ethically, not just shooting something to shoot something, all those things.
And I think that's a mistake that we've made in the past, and we can kind of continue to do that. And I think you mentioned it, the one and done stuff. I think most of our programs really focus on getting that kid, let's say, a deer, as opposed to hunting.
Right.
Because we've all heard the stories. I mean, there was a great story where someone was teaching a young woman to fish, and they take her out to a lake that's not supposed to have any fish in it. In her first cast, she catches the trophy trout. And she's, okay, I'm done. What do I do now?
Right.
I mean, she's already hit the epitome
Right.
Of it. And I think that's part of the stuff we've got to think about. And to your point, if you think about how hard it is for us to go through the process of scouting and finding a place and finding an animal, and then, taking an animal, but you take it up a level, take a rookie with you,
Right.
and get them to do that.
Right.
That's 10 times as hard. So if you want to pat yourself on the back, if you really want to accomplish somebody,
Right.
be a guide.
Right. Yeah. No. And yeah, those guys, they do have a tough job. The ones that do it for, that are professionals and do it every day.
Well, they're doing
whatever
it, but I'm saying as an individual mentor
Right.
guide, as hard as it is for you, you can really pat yourself on the back if you can take. And I'll tell you, it's easy. I love it. It's easy. Let's pick turkey hunting, which I think in Texas is the real true hunting. We're not really hunting them over feeders. It's a spot and stock.
Yeah.
You're calling them. It's a fantastic thing. I'll promote it. And it's hard enough for me to go do that. But when I take somebody else and they're moving and they don't know what to do and they don't know, that, and we can execute, it is 10 times harder. And it is, I mean, the feeling you get of accomplishment. But I think that's kind of what we've got to do, we've got to get out of our own, we want everything,
Right.
and it's all about us and so on and so forth.
Well, and, I also think, there's a lot of people that may be on the fence or they're ambivalent about hunting, right?
Right.
But conservation, I mean, who is against that? Who,
Right.
So it'd be nice to be able to sort of, I mean, everybody most hunters understand if you're a hunter, you are a conservationist with, you buy a tag and where does some of that money go?
Right.
You buy land, hopefully you're making that land, better than when you had it. So you are a conservationist, but do most people understand that? No. Do they, on the surface, it's, no, you're killing things just for fun.
Right.
Or almost, this is blasphemous to say, but I don't like to say sport,
Right.
because to me it's more than that.
Right.
A sport to me is something that's it's quick, it's done, it's fun, yay, whatever.
Right.
Football's wonderful, but hunting is a way of life.
Right. It's and the people. I was talking to a friend of mine. It's in our DNA, so to speak, and it is such a connection to the circle of life and everything. And if Ted Nugent recently, he's a controversial figure, but he had the Joe Rogan interview where he talked about if you really want to save animals, you don't want to be a vegan.
Right.
Because it is true. And you and I are out there. You watch the monoculture of any type of agriculture and the impact it has on wildlife populations. And you really start to find how the cattle industry, much of it's been demonized.
Yep.
It is not. It is as far as rich, diverse, particularly if done right, right? And there's different ways to do it. It's so important to that. And the people that go out there, I mean, you and I go out and visit a lot of ranches and get to see that, get to see it done right, get it done wrong. But it's that connection to the earth that is just part of our DNA. And I have to say one thing, there's a program here, the Texas Wildlife Association, which also runs the youth hunting program, has got an adult learn to hunt program. A guy named PhD Matt Hughes runs it. And he's in the right place. He's the guy that is out there trying to connect young professionals that don't have that connection, do not have a frame of reference, and say this is the reality of it. And that's a fantastic program, and we need more programs like that, and we need to expand programs like that because it very much deals with finding people that are interested, finding people that are open-minded, and then the stuff that we have at the very basic circle of life level, how they embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, we spend our days inside for the most part, but when you're hunting, whether you harvest something or not, I mean that's what God made, not what man made, right? So there's obviously that connection, and then and I've said this more than once, and I can't claim this quote, but I've never had a spiritual connection buying a steak in a supermarket. You you ain't gonna find it, you know?
No.
So,
No.
but, yeah, so it's finding ways to get people to connect and truly understand what it's about. And then it's not just killing, you know, that's to me, that's way down the road, you know, way down the line as far as when I go hunting. 'Cause I went, turkey hunting a few weeks ago and, didn't shoot anything.
Yeah.
But no problem there because fantastic, you know, fun and fellowship and, meeting new people and getting up early and seeing those younger jakes running by and
absolutely.
It's, you know, it'll, you know, raise the hairs on your back. It's
absolutely.
It's amazing until you've done it. The only bad thing was I didn't bring anything good to sit on, so my butt was killing me half the time. But yeah,
it's hell getting old, there, Derek. It's hell getting old.
I am telling you. But yeah, so you know, again, that's really where my focus is at: mentorship, conservation, and groups in general. Like some of the national groups that exist. And, you know, we're all kind of supposed to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see more self-serving interest, you know, if there's one group, you know, I don't want to say versus another, because we should all be about conservation. We should all be about getting people outdoors. And I think we are. But I don't know if there's a way to really get all the different groups on the same page. I remember it was when I first met you, your executive director, trying to remember his name, wonderful guy. But that was one of the quotes he gave me or one of the things he told me. He's like, if we could just get everybody on the same page,
right?
You know, imagine what we could do,
right?
You know,
and it's a trick, It's funny. I always tell this story. It's at a base level, getting everybody on the same page with that being the thing. So at the biology level, we always joke, get two biologists in a room to talk about one topic and they'll never agree on it, no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is because it's, you know, nature and what we're trying to do to help nature as stewards and trying to make the right decisions. It's very subjective, you know? So just to try to get on the right page at a very, you know, animal management level is it's almost impossible. I mean, go to a deer lease. You can't get the guys, you know, how are we going to manage with all the data that's out there?
Right.
You still see people all over the map about managing the deer population or whatever. And I think it's tough. And then at any level, getting the deer people and the turkey people and the quail people and the duck people to
exotics
you throw exotics in there, you throw deer, you know, raising deer and stuff in there, and to try to get everybody past their personal interests.
Right.
It's hard. And then you throw the nature of the competitiveness, you know, there's a limited amount of dollars. So we all have our mission and or each organization has its mission. And there's a limited amount of folks out there that are going to support your mission, and so there's a competitive nature, and I've seen that be really, I mean, I've got some stories out there, but it's not good, you know. And my biggest successes is when I've been able to find people in other organizations that we can kind of get together and create kind of the 1 + 1 = 3 attitude,
right?
But it's tough.
Yeah, I agree. I just I also actually I want to go back to we were talking about getting young adults involved and things like that, and there's a story that I did want to tell you there that happened. I think that it can also happen organically. I had there was a client I had a property and he wanted to auction off a hunt. Auctioned off a hunt. Younger guy got it, right? And he said, will you guide him on this whitetail hunt? And I said, absolutely.
Sure.
Met the guy, younger guy. He never hunted before. Parents never hunted. So literally when he showed up wearing a white cowboy hat and some camouflage. And I was like, well, the white cowboy hat's basically going to be like a flag. Every time you turn your head, the deer are going to see it. So it's
Right.
So,
right.
but we started up a friendship.
Yeah.
He didn't get anything that time. It was
Mhm.
fine, but I was able to get him on another hunt. And we've stayed in contact with each other for the past probably 4 or 5 years. He volunteers at Houston Safari. And it's those kinds of relationships, just sticking with somebody.
Right.
If they act like they're even remotely interested, I think that can really make the difference,
Well, and it's an investment. I've made some it's interesting. I made some investments, some younger guys, over the last a decade ago, let's say. And with the idea is I'm going to get old. I need somebody to carry my stuff around. So I need to bring seriously.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that and I was doing it because I was carrying the old guy stuff, right? I'm like,
Right.
at some point I got to be the old guy, right?
Right.
And so I've got some really good young men and women that I've met, and I'm trying to continue those maintained as they evolve their stuff. And it's kind of a self-centered thing on one hand, but it's so great to see it. But it also enables me to remind myself of the impediments that you go through in your stages of life. Because we talked about earlier, you're the young adult. If we want to be just traditional, kind of a typical, well, wait a minute. Now I find a mate and I got to get them involved, and they probably don't have the same, in a traditional world. They may or may not. And then if you do have a family, you start having little kids. Now you got time constraints.
Right.
And we know how much hunting and fishing, anything that you want to do, how much time it takes and how that disconnects you. And if you do not have a multi-generational connection, they're going to lose it. I mean, that's kind of becoming my job. As they don't have time, I realize I've got a new responsibility, which is somehow keep them involved, because they don't have the time. I've got the time now.
Right. But I will say this, and I told that story for a reason, more than one reason. So the way that he found us, or he found the auction, was social media. Now, where I think a lot of organizations are missing the mark, and we're kind of going through that in Houston Safari Club Foundation, is making sure that you're on top of that.
Yes.
The Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Everybody can joke around. Oh, I do the Insta face and all. I don't understand it. Well, guess what? You're gonna have to, because who's looking at that? Who is looking at that?
Yes.
The most. Younger adults.
Yes.
And that's who we want to reach. So if we don't, I'm talking across the board.
Yes.
Because there's some big groups that I don't see them doing much, and that's an absolute.
Again, I go back to my technology, my consulting background, and you have to adopt transformational technology if you're going to be successful,
right.
And if not, you're going to be obsolete, or your competitors are going to crush you.
Wipe you out.
And that's part of our problem. Is as we age out on the volunteer level, and these. I am not seeing the conservation organizations make the type of technology investments. Let's call it technology investments. They're so far behind the times, and it's very difficult in a charity organization to do those kind of things. It's always about mission on the ground. It's biology on the ground. But if you can't reach these people, and you're exactly right. And I'm telling you, I fight it every day. And you're doing it right now. I mean, honestly, that's what you're doing.
Right.
And it's a big investment. It's a big investment of time, both from you got to learn it, right? And I think a trick is going to be finding some of the younger folks. And I haven't been able to do it yet. And I'm out there looking. Can I beg anybody that's watching this seriously to help do that? Right. And it's interesting, though. What I am finding is, while people are big users of this, the actual the reason influencers are influencers that invested, it's a pretty small minority that are actually expending that time,
sure,
to do that. but I completely agree with you that it's going to be critical to our success. And I wish I knew. I mean, I posted something on TikTok with my dog this morning chasing a turtle.
Well, but that's probably going to get you how many,
I don't know, but the point is this: is I started screwing around with it literally about a month ago that you bring this up, and I went from having no followers to every time I post something, I pick up a few followers, no matter what I do.
Sure.
And that's a tiny little investment, but I'm shocked that I'll probably have 5 more people that follow me because they like to see my dog look at a turtle.
Right. I get it. It's funny that, I mean, my daughter is 14 years old, and I was talking about social media and Instagram or whatever, and she edits these little videos and stuff that she comes up with, little goofy things or whatever. And she'll do it one day, and then the next day she'll say, "Oh, I got another 3,600 people that looked at it." And I'm like, what? And it's stuff about, games or stuff like that. But,
right.
I'm about to put her on it, because she edits and puts it all together herself, and it's amazing. And that's kind of the thing that I think a lot of people that are on boards may not understand. They think they know.
Right.
Like, oh, well, we just need to like it more, and then it'll blow up. That's not it.
No.
There's so much more to it.
No.
So, hire somebody that does it for a living, that
right.
you see the proof that this particular brand or whatever went from 200 followers to 200,000 in 2 months, and
right.
How they do it.
Right.
What kind of algorithm do they know that I don't know? That there's more to it than that.
I think there is more to it, but I think it goes back to something you mentioned is a bigger problem. I'm not sure if you looked back at the time of Teddy, Roosevelt and Aldo and some of those guys. There was a transformative period. It's a period that we don't have any animals. We've got to protect them. And you go back to the 70s, let's say, when in particular the conservation movement kicked off. We took it to a whole nother level with a lot of the organizations we're familiar with.
Right.
If you go back to the roots and look at the Ducks Unlimited and Rocky Mountain Elk and the Mule Deer and Safari Club, those roots are going to be bass. They're going to be in that area. We're at a different place now. Society's at a different place. Land use is at a different place. Technology's in a different place. Agricultural practices are a different place. And the successes that we had, the way we measured success, I don't know that the way we're measuring, I don't know these organizations they're sticking with some old measures of success.
Right.
And they were more on the ground. But to the stuff that we're talking about, I think it's more about awareness. Our measures of success ought to be almost like team members. How many people have we recruited? Yeah, we saved a certain number of animals,
right? And
we're doing that. But in order to sustain that, we have to have supporters.
Right.
And that has always been a secondary thing. Dollars were more important
than membership, right?
Than membership. And that's what the influencers have proven to us. When they look at how many people am I touching, how many people are they following us, they're showing the importance of people connecting to your organization.
No, that's a good point. And I've actually heard people say that. I'm not worried about membership. I want to bring in, this sponsor. Well, you're not going to bring in a sponsor if you can't tell the sponsor that you have X amount of, people that are members or whatever. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. But at the same time, you don't have to be the biggest organization, but as long as you're growing and you are touching people, then mission accomplished. I mean, I feel like National Wild Turkey accomplished their main goals, I think, a long time ago. There's turkeys everywhere.
Well,
right?
I'm part of that organization, and not always when you talk a little contrary, you may not always be the most popular guy in the street with your organization, but we're a victim of our own success. So and that's kind of what I go back to as a prime example. So we said that we're going to have huntable populations go from really in the thousands to we had a peak of 8 million, which was probably 10 or 15 years ago, and huntable populations everywhere they were and more. Now that has since dropped. We've got problems. It's down to 6 million or under, and we've got bazillions of biologists looking at all these reasons why, and so on and so forth, and everything you would expect and more. There's not just one silver bullet.
Sure.
But one thing that we did during that transformation, once you've success, what are you doing anymore?
Right.
And the organization has gone through this. Who are we?
Right.
And I think they're coming back to the roots and say, yes, our core is back to the turkey hunters, and the turkey is our icon. But went through this lost period of we're just biologists, and even with the biggest project very, very good biologists. In fact, the biggest project that National Wild Turkey Project really has going on is the federal contracts to save the forests that are burning in the West, places you don't even think about turkeys. Great biology, but how does that fit into who we are? So I think I would guess that if I would ask you back to Safari Club International, when I think of Safari Club International, I probably have a picture of not what you want it to be.
Right.
Well, it's the trophy hunter wearing zebra stuff, and
right.
And I don't.
Well, Safari Club International is completely
right.
Right. We separated 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I think. Now, that said, you still have the word Safari.
Yes.
And you still have a logo that's an elephant. So you put the two together.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to shoot an elephant, and I don't go to Africa.
Right.
And the word safari doesn't, specifically mean African hunting.
Right.
But that doesn't matter. That's what most people associate it with.
Sure.
So, 50 years ago, I think the club was about that. But now it's different. It's much different. So I think a lot of groups go through the growing pain, and we are as well.
Yes.
You've got to progress. You've got to expand. I would say we're just as much a resource for North American game, at least, as we are, Africa. I think almost every group has to. I mean, there are some groups that are super specific, but there are growing pains, and the question is, who are we?
And I think that it's who we are, what are our goals, how does that evolve, and then how do you, once you crystallize it, you've got to crystallize that and have a strategy, and then how do you represent that back as you go through that? And there are some, I think one of the things that Ducks Unlimited has done better than anybody is they have maintained a very specific. I think the CCA guys have done it's very clear.
Their message, yes.
And I think there are in areas that it's easier to do that for reasons, and we all kind of know what those are. So I'm not trying to, not to take anything away from them, but it's an easier thing to wrap your hands around what they are. But they've done a great job of that. They've been able to maintain it, and they've been able to brand it, and we all kind of know what they do.
Right. Whereas
I think, to your point, where some of the other organizations are struggling is either through success or non-success. When you look at some of the upland game areas, they've fallen apart because they haven't had successes and they have not been able to deal with it. But then I think you look at the elk, I think you look at the turkeys in particular.
Right.
They've victims of their own success and are redefining themselves. Safari Club International, total transformation.
Right.
And I know what's going on, but the branding, I know what's going on, but it's not getting out there.
Right.
And it's a challenge. And I think back to your point, very much the mechanism, probably the best way to do that is to embrace these other channels, which we all call social media.
Right.
And have that.
Yeah.
I would agree that that's the way to go.
I think so too, to make sure that, and like you said, crystallize that message. What is that message?
Right.
And get it out there through social media.
Yeah. And I will say I've seen us do a better job. And I've seen it happen, and I've watched the transformation. And it very much was go through this, figure out again how we've evolved. We're not somebody completely different. Let's get back to our core message and do a really good job of that. Deal with it's our icon species with turkeys. It's turkey hunters have been our core. It's the organizations, both specific to camouflage and turkey calls, or even broader, the Bass Pros of the world, making sure they understand what we're doing and can represent as part of that. And and then I think our challenge now, and I think we've done a better job, our organization, of crystallizing back who we are. If you look in our magazines, our online stuff's about her. But to your point, we are definitely missing the boat on some of these other areas.
For sure.
And I think stuff like you're doing here, is no matter who you are, is gonna help address that.
I hope so. I got another question for you. Have you ever heard of an Earth ship?
An Earth ship? I don't know. Not in the context of what you're probably talking about.
So to bring back to real estate.
Yeah.
We'll close it out with this because I got to tell you about. So I have a listing.
Yes.
Seller calls me and says it has an Earth ship on the property. I said, all right, great. What is an Earth ship? So an Earth ship is a self-sustainable home. It's very specific to. There's a company in New Mexico. There's an architect, and he's created several plans, and I guess he's been building these for at least 14, 15 years now.
Yeah.
There's very few, I only know of one in Texas, but there may be more.
Okay.
Right? So it's built predominantly recyclable materials.
Okay.
Tires.
Okay.
And you build it into a berm, right?
Yes.
Whether it's there naturally or you just push dirt.
Yes.
It has a natural water catch system, right? And then the electricity is solar.
Yeah.
So it's insulated because it's basically
right.
It looks like a hobbit house,
right?
So, and the architecture is almost. You look at it. I immediately looked at it and said, "Logan's Run." Because
right,
but that I'm
right.
Generationally people are like, what's Logan's Run? I have to go back and explain that movie or whatever. So Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, a Hobbit house or whatever.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely unique. So I have a listing that has one of those on it. Now it hasn't been inhabited in a while, so it needs a little work. But the fact that we have one in Texas, and actually it's in East Texas.
That's interesting. I think there's I don't know if I call it a phenomenon. I've just seen this interesting lately. It started off with the Alaska people and the off the grids and all this stuff that was popular in reality television, and it's some of the stuff we've talked about. But it's amazing how many people that I've talked to, young people, in the last month, I've talked to 4 different young couples that are looking to kind of be more of an off the grid. It's very divergent from the other stuff that we see, the predominant, which is we're all on our phones all the time. So I think that there's definitely a movement of back to nature, get away from that stuff, and it is with a certain set of young people.
Right.
Now, I don't know how that would resonate to purchase, because what these folks were all doing, they were following opportunities to move. 3 of the couples are actually moving to the Panhandle of Alaska. One's going up to Western Colorado to work on a ranch that no one else will work on because it's in the middle of nowhere. But that kind of clicks into my head that I'm seeing more of an interest in that kind of stuff. But it's with very young couples as far as the lifestyle associated.
Right. And I would think you would think it'd be a natural thing at some point with the oversaturation of, your iPad, your iPhone, your computer, the TV, all these things that at some point there's going to be, that kind of effect where people are going to say, you know what, I have to back off of all of this.
Well, and who knows? Yeah, there's that function of it. Then there's just the practicality of it. In that, I think a lot of it always gets back to that. It's if I can live sustainably and if I can simplify, which would include if I can reduce costs because I'm living in a hobbit because I don't have the electric bills and I'm off the
Yeah,
grid and
right.
that. But it's got to be balanced by the fact that we all are. The problem with the phones is they entertain us all the time, and all to think that we don't live at the pinnacle of civilization and technology and in this country, our need to have that all the time.
Right.
So that's why I think you said it hadn't been lived in a while. Somebody runs down that road, but it almost becomes, I don't know how big this property is, but it makes me think of, that's my caretaker place.
Right.
Again, I'm finding these young folks that I need someone to come watch my property, and I want somebody, and it's worth an investment, and I need something to offer to them.
Right.
And there's a whole group of people that offering would be very interesting to.
Well, that, and it's also, I don't know how they did it. I haven't asked, but they were able to purchase this property. They purchased, or there's an easement to their property, and it's in the middle of Davy Crockett.
Wow.
Like it's like, is it a quarter of a mile back or a half mile back? So it's off the road.
Yeah.
And the idea was when they bought it, I guess, I don't know how many, 20 years ago, that they wanted, the high canopy, the trees, so the drones couldn't find them.
Wow.
Well, now they have infrared, and it wouldn't matter, and they're going to find them anyway. But it's unique. So
yeah, it sounds like what it sounds like to me, if I haven't seen it, it'd be very interesting. I love to get into the details of that. But it sounds to me like, again, we go back to finding a place to hunt. What a better deal to find there's your hunting cabin. It's got some very interesting elements of it. It kind of can be self-sustaining, and you're in the middle of this public area, and because you're in the middle,
right,
the folks around the edges can't get to it. So you kind of have the benefit of a big backyard that,
Yeah. Speaking of phones, so I'm trying to remember what I titled it, or what we titled it. It's but it's unique. It's not for everyone, but at the same time, we're selling it for land value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though I talked to the people that built it in New Mexico, I talked to them yesterday.
Yeah.
And they will advise you on what to do if you want to change something with the filtration system or whatever. But for the most part, is it? Here we go. Yeah, we just got it up. So sorry.
Yeah. No.
They show that it's near Kennard, Texas. It's really near Ratcliffe. I say is closer than that. $575,000 for 37.3 acres, and it is unique. If you want to look at it online, it's 37.3 acres of solitude in Houston County, and it is solitude because you're surrounded by
absolutely
national forest. I mean, it's
absolutely. Yeah, for all you turkey guys out there, you may or may not be in some really good turkey. There are pockets of turkeys over in East Texas. We continue to release birds there. It's really one of the only places in the country that we continue to actively try to get them established. We have a problem, but there's some really cool pockets in there.
Yep.
And if you've never been to that part of the country, people talk about Texas being really different ecosystems.
Oh, yeah.
The ecosystems over there are majestic, because that's the area you get the big tall trees. And I'm not sure exactly that, whether it's pines or, there's unbelievably tall magnolias and stuff that you just don't even expect.
It's almost like a rainforest in some areas in East Texas. It really is. It rains so much, and
And I'm not sure if that's got there's different soil types over there too, so you can get into some really interesting ecosystems over there.
Yeah.
And very, very cool part of the state.
They've got some nice, call them, they're not named creeks, but there's some wet weather creeks that go through there.
Right.
Wood ducks.
Right.
All through there. So, the Earthship it's unique and it's interesting, but
yes,
the land itself is gorgeous because it's got some rolling terrain to it. It's got some, water to it. You're back off, like I said, the highway, low fenced all around. Actually, part of it is next to they've dubbed a woodpecker preserve.
Yeah.
So you're really, nobody can be over there at all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and if the one thing about in Texas, of course, we are a place that you can throw corn.
mm-hmm.
And if you're in the very middle of a national forest where you can't throw corn, again, just thinking about the deer hunting and the turkeys and the various, of course, the hogs and everything, I think you could be a very popular spot.
Absolutely.
That would be very unique to the area and provide a definite for the hunters out there.
I've had some interest, that's for sure.
I absolutely can expect. I would expect that.
Well,
I'd love to see it. You have to take me out there.
I will. I definitely. Yeah. Anytime.
that'd be cool.
It's not that far. It's not
Yeah.
that far.
No, it's not that far.
From Houston, it's less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
So not too bad.
Yeah. I bet we could find a lake over there to go fishing on too. I got to get. I have an underperforming asset in my boat, as I've said before. So find any excuse to drag out there and do something. On one of those East Texas lakes.
There you go. No, there's a lot of water.
Yeah,
a lot of water.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Conversation was great as always. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime. And I think it was a great conversation. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yep.
I'll just close out again and say thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care.